This is Shirley Corriher making biscuits. Now, these are my grandmother's biscuits, and she used to make them in a big oblong wooden bread bowl. And she had this wet mess in the back of the bread bowl. And then she would dry her hand, take a handful of flour from the front of the bowl and sprinkle it on this wet mess. Then she'd pinch off a biscuit-sized piece and dip it in the flour. And after it was totally coated in the flour, she would pick it up and she'd shake off the excess flour and then put it in a little 8-inch cake pan. And she squished them up against each other in the pan. You'll see in a minute when I get them here, so that they would rise up and not spread out. So here we go. I've got tender baked, my favorite, my personal blended just for me flour here from Mid-State Mills. And you can see it's just beautiful, and it's truly as soft as silk. It's just as fine as it can be. And now I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, and this is 1/4 of a cup per batch. I'm doing a double batch. And a little bit of salt, okay, and that's 1/2 teaspoon per batch. Now I'm just going to toss around these dry ingredients. Stirring does a much better job of blending than sifting. So if you have something that you need to really stir well, like if this is self-rising flour, so that leavening is blended perfectly throughout the flour. I'm not going to have any holes here and holes there like you see in some different products. This is perfectly blended, so I don't have to really stir the food out of it. But if you were blending baking powder in something, you really need to stir it well. So here goes. I'm going to add a little shortening. And now I want 1/4 of a cup per batch. So that's going to be 1/2 cup. And here I go, cutting off 1/2 cup of shortening. All right. And there's my shortening. You can work this in with your fingers, just work it in. All you want to do, it's no big deal. You just don't want to have any huge lumps of shortening, but this isn't any huge deal. So I'm just cutting it in, and you can do it all with your fingers. I just happen to have this handy, so I'll use it for a little. Okay. Now, let's take a look and see where we are. I'm just reaching in, and I've got a few big lumps. And here we go, it's getting there, just reaching in. Now, you can check up on how you're doing simply by shaking the bowl. So I'm going to shake the bowl, and any great big lumps will come to the top. So I see them, just grab them, and that's it. That'll take care of it. Now you don't want to work this in so that it's real fine. You just want to make sure there are no huge lumps. And we're all set there. Now I'm going to add the cream. And what I want is about 2/3 of a cup of cream. I just want about 1/3 of a cup more because I had 2/3 and 1/3. So I think I'll call it a day with the cream. And now some buttermilk. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to stir in this cream first, and then I will stir in buttermilk until I get these biscuits to look like cottage cheese. They're gonna be a lumpy mess like cottage cheese. So let me just get with the program here and stir my cream in first. So here we go, stirring the cream in. All right, now I've gotten the cream stirred in, And now I'm going to add buttermilk until I get that good old cottage cheese consistency. See, this is the dough I want, not soup, but it looks like cottage cheese. It's lumpy and cheesy looking. Okay, so let me just get the dry spots out, and I think I'm on go. It's a little bit more difficult if the dough is too wet, because see, we've got to shape these biscuits by hand. So let's see what we've got here. Now I like a heaping scoop, and this is a number 30. It's a medium ice cream scoop. And I'm just putting a few out here. You just put a, okay. What I'm doing, I'm not so much shaping as I am just knocking off the excess flour. And I'm going to squish this in the pan. And the next biscuit I'm going to squish up next to it so they'll rise up instead of spreading out. And I'm just tossing off to get rid of the excess flour. And then I'm just gonna put it in right here next to each other and squish them up against each other. You can assembly line these and have one person scooping and two people doing the shaping, so it can go really pretty fast. Just flouring my wet dough here and then shaking off the excess flour, kind of shaping it into somewhat of a round and squishing it into the pan. And we're baking today in a convection oven at 375, but a home oven I would want non-convection 425. Now these are Touch of Grace biscuits because when I followed my grandmother around the kitchen, I would use her bowl, her shortening, her flour, everything just like she did. And then I would shape them just like she did. I thought she was shaping them. I didn't realize she was just shaking off the flour. But my biscuits were a dry, mealy mess. Because see, I didn't realize she had a wet dough. I thought it had to be dry enough to shape. And I didn't realize she coated the outside with flour so she could shape them. Now see how light and fluffy? Look how fluffy that is. Can you get a real close-up of that biscuit? That's amazing. That is so light and fluffy. And that's the power of steam. That's steam for you. That is an incredible biscuit. Oh boy, I don't know whether I can resist this or not. Anyhow, my grandmother, when I'd cry and say, "Nanny, what did I do wrong?" she'd lean down and give me a big hug and say, "Honey, I think you forgot to add a touch of grace." So I've called them Touch of Grace biscuits ever since. Oh boy, oh boy. Ah. I swear to them, these are heavenly.